So this evening, this talk that I'm going to share with you actually came from a question. It was actually a larger quote by a teacher, Gil Fronsdale. But it began with, "Is it possible to find ease and grace in a world full of change?" And that piqued my interest, but it piqued my interest several years ago because I remember seeing this way back, gosh, now probably 5 years ago. But he goes on to say, it is possible to trust the mind of non-clinging and so find our liberation within the world of impermanence. So my talk this evening is really about impermanence. But I want to first examine a little bit about that mental construct of staying, right? You know, that sense of staying put. I mean, we use this all the time, right? Stay for just a moment. Staying despite whatever it is, or even stay in my corner. And I remember an old R&B song back in the 60s. This group is called the Dells, and I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they had an original song in the 50s called, God, what was it? Oh, What a Night. I would sing it to you, but you would probably, close your ears. But anyway, it's Oh, What a Night. But the song that I remember so well was this. It was a long version, but it was a song called Stay in My Corner. And wow, it went on probably, you know how 45s would only go for like 3 minutes. This one went for like 7 minutes long, and it kept saying, stay, stay, stay in my corner. You know, it's one of those love songs. Does anyone remember that? Show of hands? All right. Thanks, Walt. So I'm not the only one here. Okay. But, you know, we've heard all those love songs and the sonnets and the themes of forever, right? Recited over and over again. Will you love me forever? But what they all have in common and what our relation is, what is our relationship and our attachment to this staying? You know, in fact, the sense of forever, it just seems as though it's an event that will or can or should occur later on. Oops, that's my bell. But in reality, our life right now is about the ebb and flow of impermanence. Impermanence is now. Whether a thought or opening of the heart, maybe the birth and death of a rose, especially with the spring weather, we're seeing roses bud already. Or even taking a caterpillar, taking that slow, methodical journey towards its final destination, that of a butterfly. Change is occurring simultaneously at all times. One of the things the Buddha famously said is, all conditioned things have the nature of vanishing. It's that rising and passing away. It's even the thoughts that were going on and the breath that we had during our 30-minute meditation. It was the rising and the falling of the breath. Right? It was the thought that went up and it hung up there for a moment and then it dissipated. This is the state of impermanence. All conditioned things have the nature of vanishing. In one of the texts called the Majjhima Nikaya, Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is a scholar and a translator, he speaks of impermanence in this way. Anicca, which is the Pali term for impermanence, is the bedrock for the Buddhist teachings. I mean, that's saying something, right? It's the foundation that all the nature of things are going to arise and pass away. Adam Frank, who was an American astrophysicist, said this, quote, "We fill it with each breath. From birth to the unknown moment of our passing, we ride the river of change, And yet, in spite of all evidence to the contrary, we exhaust ourselves in the endless search for solidity. We hunger for something that lasts, some idea or principle that rises above time and change. We hunger for certainty. That is a big problem, unquote. Can you feel into that? That we're wanting to hold on. That sense of certainty. Now, I have to say, during these last couple of years, and next month, actually, March, we'll begin our third year of this pandemic or the shutdown, whatever it is. But I know for myself, I have longed for a little bit of that time of the past, a little bit of certainty before the pandemic hit, before the lockdown, where we felt that we could stay. We could stay close to our friends. We could stay close to our family. All of that. We hunger for normalcy, which may not really be in this present moment or really realistic at all. The deep knowing and living with impermanence is our entryway, a gateway to liberation. I mean, that's a big statement. But after many, many years of practice, I really am starting to grok that, to understand that once I know that I can live in this state of a bit of uncertainty and wavering and flux, because this is the way life is, it is indeed the gateway to liberation. It's one of those 84,000 Dharma doors that we can enter into and begin to rest in. What we only really know for sure is the consistency of change. The wisdom and the understanding of anicca, impermanence, lays in the groundwork for a much deeper presence into freedom. If we're open to the development of that flow. Ruth King, friend, teacher, very wise woman, wise seeker, she says, it's not personal, it's not permanent, it's not perfect. And I'm wondering how many of us can actually hold that. It's not permanent, it's not personal, and it's not perfect. Because isn't that what we want? We're wanting our lives to be the way we want them to be. And how disappointing when it isn't. I suffer from this disease called expectation. How about you all? I mean, I have these great expectations, these great dreams. It oftentimes gets dashed by my wife. But, I have all these great expectations. And then I suffer such deep disappointment. Right? That sometimes it renders me like woeful and sorrowful. And yet, once I am now able to grok a little bit more, just a little bit more, get closer to the fact that nothing is going to remain the same, I'm finding myself a little bit better able to deal with the disappointments. Now, does it change my disease? I'm trying. I'm trying to find a 12-step program for it, but I'm trying. But what I want to do is I want to segue for a moment, and I want to go into the story of Siddhartha Gautama, also known as the Buddha. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how he was able to actually see impermanence in his lifetime, in his very young life. So when Siddhartha was born, he was born of privilege. Many of you know this: wealth, security, protection. All that anyone could ever want, he wanted for nothing. What a life. At birth, his father called a spiritual guide together, a soothsayer, to give him a reading, a prophecy about his infant son. And the prophecy was twofold. On one hand, Prince Gautama, if protected from the ills of the world, would become a powerful and wise ruler, or a renunciant and a great spiritual teacher if he saw great suffering. Well, as that result, Siddhartha's father and surrogate mother and aunt Mahapajapati, made an empathetic decision to protect him. You've heard the story where he was kept in princely gold. He had 3 palaces, refinement, luxury. In the cold season, he had a palace. In the hot season, he had a palace. He had a palace in the rainy season. In a discourse, the Buddha said to his monks after his enlightenment, he said that he never left his palace during the rainy season and that all the servants cared and pampered him. However, after a while, all the riches and all the women who came to him and all of the privilege that he had didn't appear to be enough. So he had this servant. It was actually his friend. His name was Channa. And Channa and Siddhartha began this journey where they started to leave, was actually his chariot rider, but Siddhartha asked him if he could leave the palace walls. His father, upon hearing that, ordered that everything that would be horrible in sight outside the palace walls should be removed from the streets. What a feat, right? Almost impossible. So Channa and Siddhartha began their journey. So their first sight, when he left the palace walls, he happened upon an elderly man with sores, and he was walking with difficulty. He asked Channa, what was the nature of this man? Channa replied, this man is sick. Continuing to say that everyone will get sick. You, your parents, himself, all people. At that point, Siddhartha asked to go back to the palace. He was, sorrowful. It hurt him. Channa thought that experience may have been too much, but the very next day, Siddhartha said he wanted to venture back outside the gates. Again, they started out on their journey into town, and he happened upon another person walking very slow with a cane, with thin, wispy hair. Again asking, what is the nature of this man? Channa said, everyone will get old. He's an old man. You will get old. Your parents will get old. Siddhartha said he had had enough for the day and wanted to go back to the palace. So again, Channa thought, okay, this was enough for him. We're cool. But the next day, as they made their way again beyond the gates, as they approached the village, he saw people walking in a procession with this long plank, carrying somebody overhead. Siddhartha asked Channa, what was that sight? Channa replied, it was a funeral. Somebody had died, saying to the prince, we will all die. You will die, your parents will die, I will die. At this point, the prince was so disturbed, went back. He spent several days of just unrest at night. And then they went back out beyond the gate again. This time they noticed a man draped in an orange cloth, and he sensed in his step and his look that he was full of grace, had immense peace and ease and calm. And again, Siddhartha asked his friend who that was. Channa replied, that man is a renunciant, a yogi. He has let go of his worldly possessions in order to find the truth. What Siddhartha mentioned, what he witnessed in all of his time away from the palace, was pivotal to his change of who he was. What he saw was the 4 heavenly messengers. He saw death. He saw old age. He saw illness. And he saw peace. And he was so moved by the suffering he witnessed by the first 3 messengers, he was eventually drawn to the peaceful truth and grace that he witnessed in the last yogi. So I'm just going to read you a little statement from Pema Chodron. It's an excerpt from one of her books. It's called Changing as a River, is the saying. Nothing is static or permanent, and includes you and me. We know this about cars and carpets, new shirts and DVD players, but are less willing to face it when it comes to ourselves or to other people. We have a very solid view of ourselves and also very fixed views about others. Yet, if we look closely, we can see that we aren't even slightly fixed. In fact, we are all as unfixed and changing as a river. For convenience, we label the constant flow of water the Mississippi or the Nile, very much the way we call ourselves Jack or Helen. But that river isn't the same for any fraction of a second. People are equally in flux. I am like that, and so are you. Our thoughts, emotions, molecules are constantly changing. This is what the Buddha saw, change. He saw it within the three heavenly messengers. And he was drawn again towards the man who was at peace. So as we move from the story of the Buddha's eventual departure from his home, his family, his wife, his son, in search of the fourth heavenly messenger, he saw that not only his journey, but the journey of our awakening can begin with wise view, wise intention, and acute paying attention to our mind's habituation, that we live in this sense of everything has to be fixed, permanent. And that we live in this, what they call the three evils, which I don't necessarily like that word, but greed, hatred, and delusion. The three ills, I'll call them. And these forms of intoxication affect us internally and externally, the realities of our life. It affects our health, our energy, our practice, our well-being, which then leads us to disconnecting from our true selves. As the Buddha moved from the palace to the forest to enter his own self-imposed renunciation, and then to his realization of awakening, he was moving towards that sense of his teaching of impermanence. That is true Buddha nature itself. Again, Bhikkhu Bodhi, the scholar, impermanence having been the initial insight that impelled the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, to leave the palace in search of a path of enlightenment. Impermanence, in the Buddhist view, comprises the totality of conditioned existence, ranging in a scale from the cosmic to the myopic. This character of impermanence that marks everything conditioned leads directly to the recognition of universality of dukkha and suffering, which is actually the same word. So let me just take a moment and just pause here for a moment, because that was a lot. The story of the Buddha's movement from a very sheltered life to one that he was in search and finally was able to rest in his awakening. With the understanding that nothing was permanent, everything was in flux. There are three characteristics. It is impermanence, suffering, and non-self. These are the three characteristics of existence. And how timely, in a program that I am in, we're studying those three characteristics just this month, because it really does pertain to our life, all of our lives. So even as we practice meditation, mindfulness, sati, in Pali, sati, the word, our practice illuminates where our diverging spheres of how unpleasant senses feel and how pleasant some feel. It would be foolish to cling onto any of them because they are transitory. And yet, our sense of avoidance and ignorance and attachment still persists as we practice to relive these very conditions that caused us so much suffering. It is within the solidity of our suffering that we turn away from our moment-to-moment experiences and linger towards only those that please us, hoping that they'll last, creating the conditions of permanency, but actually creating conditions and then the ultimate suffering. It's the same thing with that song, Stay in My Corner. Won't you stay just a little bit longer? Won't you stay despite everything else? Just stay. Let's fix, hold, attach ourselves. I want to take a moment to just examine that mental state that we are in when that happens. Again, this mental construct, which is ultimately self-created, has less to do about our location or our logistics or geographic positionality, but more to do about the stymied blockage and impediment to moving towards actual liberation. We can call it hindrances, we can call it obstacles, but we're really blocking our pathway. The realization of impermanence can also be a painful journey, and it could take us down this very, very crazy rabbit hole. Often there's no ease with this journey because we can't quite get to that, right? There's all these missteps and dead ends and wrong turns. Instead of just releasing ourselves, understanding that we can't hold on to things. That's not the human existence. On one of the last sermons or talks that the Buddha gave, he expressed himself this way: impermanence is inescapable. Everything vanishes. Therefore, there is nothing more important than continuing the path with diligence. All other options either deny or short shift the problem. Diligence, determination, will. But let's not forget what is inside us already. We have the capacity to look deeply inside ourselves and to make those shifts occur. But we get locked. We get locked into the way in which we think life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, right? As my grandsons, it's supposed to be that way. I want it to be that way. We all want it to be that way. All of these mental configurations have a view that colludes our already tendency to affix our minds to this clinging, this wanting, these attachments. In Pali, again, the word of the language of the Buddha, the word for clinging or craving, or that sense of greed, is tanha, T-A-N-H-A. There are various forms of the word, but loosely it's translated, it means the unquenchable thirst. There are three concepts in Buddhism referring to thirst, desire, longing, and greed. They're either physical or mental, and they're typically translated as craving. So the first one is kama tanha, which is craving for sensual pleasures. Bhava tanha, craving for existence. And vibhava tanha, craving for non-existence. It is tanha that keeps our thoughts orbiting in that cycle. I don't know if you've heard the word samsara, that constant cycle of suffering that we just can't get out of. Right? Just a really quick story. I remember many years ago, my son bought a TV. He went to Best Buy, he borrowed our truck, and he went to get this TV, and I think it was like a 50-inch TV, and this is probably years ago. It was huge. So we went to his house, and we were watching a football game, and he had a small apartment. He had this 50-inch TV up here, and we're watching football, right, on some Sunday. And the TV is so big, I feel like I'm catching the ball, like I'm out for the pass. It was just incredible. And I was like, God, this is such a great TV, so big. And literally within seconds, he said, yeah, I really would love to get a 60-inch. How many of us that's that unquenchable thirst, right? I want more. I just want more. That's tanha, the craving, the clinging, the greed. Knowing that we could get it, of course. But, is that really the path we need to take? All is subject to arising, and all is subject to cessation, the ending. This is the nature of our lives. Why is this teaching so pivotal to the path towards liberation? What makes many who have encountered the Buddhist teaching resist even the prospect of change, let alone the inevitability of it? Big question, right? Really big question. So again, the three characteristics in the Dharma, in the canon, these are the principles that the Buddha talks about, the three factors of existence. They're all conditioned. Impermanence or change, anicca. Suffering or unsatisfactoriness, as it's called, dukkha. Non-self or insubstantiability, anatta. Although each of these conditioned factors have relevance to our muddled and joyous lives, each connect to levels of happiness and sorrow that we hold on to. So I have a couple of what ifs for you. And this I thought about to see what is our direct relationship to suffering and how do we move out of it once we actually begin to understand. And the Buddha always says, let's understand this idea of impermanence. So when I look in the mirror, I see that I'm not the same shape. I don't have the same kind of energy. My mind is not as sharp as it was when I was 20. So it goes. But sometimes I can't come to grips with that kind of change, right? I keep holding on to the me of the past. I look at my eyes in the morning. I'm like, oh my goodness, my face is dropping, all of that. So what if? What if I truly accepted the fact of aging without any preconception? Without any conditions? And I embraced change of my body and mind as a point or a place of wisdom. What if? Would that help me understand impermanence a little bit better? There are times when patterns of thinking are rooted in our habit mind, our fixed views. I hold sometimes very fast to my beliefs of permanence, my way. This is how it has to be. I want it to remain. This mind state is devoid of any equanimity. It doesn't allow us to rest in that state of what is. But we still do it. What if I let go of my grip to control the situation of my beliefs and simply allow change to uniformly and organically unfold? That means I can't be in control, right? That's scary. What if I could actually see life much like the change of the seasons? The eventuality of winter going to spring and summer going into fall. What if? In 2017, my father had just turned 90 years old. He's an ancestor now. His health was failing. He was moving slower. My sister and I, he was moving very slow, but his mind was sharp and it was functioning. Then in 2017, my sister and I had to arrange to relocate him from his apartment that he'd been in for 14 years, right, to a new apartment. So change, he was resistant to it. His own change fueled a total frustration and breakdown for me and increased my levels of stress. And sometimes when you hear stress in the Buddhist text, it is akin to suffering. So let's call it, I was suffering, right? I was suffering because of what I was dealing with my father, but I was suffering because of my own mind. I wanted this to happen for him. And it created a lot of anger and complicated relationship with my dad. So it was even worse. What if my father, my sister, and myself operated from this internal knowing that nothing will come from that state except the suffering? What if the stress of change could have been alleviated? What if we realized that we didn't have to hold on so tightly? Allowing yourself to surrender to the truth of each moment. Allowing yourself to live in the indwelling space of impermanence. Seeing the rising and the passing away of all phenomena. And remembering that that indwelling state of liberation doesn't have to mean anything but what it is, freedom of the mind, stilling of the thoughts, opening of the heart, this moment. If in the course of letting go, you find that this practice can change you, embrace that new path. Know you have chosen wisely. This human condition in which we're living requires us to pay attention when we're leaning into that place of greed, hatred, and delusion. Witnessing the sense that the feeling and breathing go deeper and deeper as you begin to let go. So again, the question that started this whole talk: is it possible to find ease and grace in a world full of change? Take a moment. Is it possible to find ease and grace in a world full of change? Letting go. Is it possible to do that? Gil Fronsdal says, it is possible to trust the mind of non-clinging and so find our liberation within the world of impermanence. And in this moment, I believe that is true. Ajahn Lee, who is a teacher of the renowned Thai monk and teacher Ajahn Chah, said, if you let go a little, you will find a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will find more peace. If you let go completely, you will find complete peace. Just in letting go, understanding that the mental state of mind of holding things solid, fixed, unmovable, will only lead to suffering. It is a conditioned mindset. Ending, I have, because if anyone has sat with me, you know I like poems. So I'm going to read you a poem called She Let Go. You may have heard this. This is by a woman named Sapphire Rose. She let go. Without a thought or word, she let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of for all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her date timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effect. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was. And it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came across her face. A light breeze blew through her. And the sun and the moon shone forevermore. She just let go. It feels possible to free ourselves from the suffering world that we live in by recognizing and understanding, as the Buddha said, the nature of our existence. Again, is it possible? See, what did he say? He said, is it possible to find ease and grace in a world full of change? Thank you, Sangha. Thank you for your kind attention. And please take all of this. Let these words settle into your body, into your mind, thinking about your path and your journey. Thank you. And as I had expected, I went over time. I was hoping that we would have some time for Q&A, but we only have 4 minutes left. And I do want to do a dedication of merit. Like I said, it has been such a long time since, let me go back to my full screen. It has been such a long time since I've been at the POC Sangha. I can't tell you how light my heart is right now, how full it feels. I'm feeling joy just seeing you. Thank you. Each of you. Such blessings. Let me go to my next screen so I can get all my bows in. Thank you. Yes, this is medicine, isn't it? Yeah. This truth is medicine. Perfect. So why don't we take a moment, settle into our bodies again, leaving all those words behind, and just finding your breath. Just this moment. I'm so happy right now. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you. Mm. Before we dedicate the merit of our practice, I'll share with you a poem by Zenju Earthland Manuel. It's called For All Beings. May all beings be cared for and loved, be listened to, understood, and acknowledged despite different views. Be accepted for who you are in this moment. To be afforded patience. To be allowed to live without fear or having their lives taken away or their bodies violated. May all beings be well in its broadest sense. Be fed, be clothed, be treated as if their life is precious. Be held in the eyes of each other as family. May all beings be appreciated. Feel welcomed anywhere on the planet. Be freed from acts of hatred and desperation, including war, poverty, slavery, and street crimes. Live on the planet housed and protected from harm. Be given what is needed to fully live without scarcity. Enjoy life living without fear of one another. Be able to speak freely in a voice and a mind of undeniable love. May all beings receive and share the gift of life. Be given time to rest, be still, and experience silence. May all beings be awake. May we dedicate the merit of our practice this evening to our wakefulness, to the places that we can indwell into our mind hearts, allowing the truth to spring forth, allowing us to hold fast to nothing, allowing the emptiness of space to reach our true nature. May our practice be for the benefit of all beings, two-legged, four-legged, winged, and gilled. May all beings find the path to liberation and freedom. Not bad. It's 9:01. Not bad. Thank you, family. May you rest well. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.